Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Hare Krishna. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to ISV Studios, where we're following the footsteps of the great acharyas and under the direct protection of our founder acharyas, Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who's assembled the perfect means through which to follow in the footsteps of the Goswamis of Vrindavan and to emulate the style and mood of their teachings and practices. And the sound that comes in is, in case you don't know, from the Battle of Kurukshetra. In the first chapter of the Gita, it's explained how when the armies assembled, there was the tumultuous blowing of conch shells. So when you hear that sound, this is it coming from Kurukshetra. The armies are gathering. Okay? Hare Krishna. So this verse we'll have put up on a in the next few days on a PowerPoint. We're going to be collecting a few extra verses to chant before classes, and this is one of them. And we'll read the translation first together from the Chaitanya Charitamrita 22.126. Let's read together. Maharaj Parikshit attained the highest perfection, shelter Lord Krishna's lotus feet, simply by hearing about Lord Vishnu. Shukadev Goswami attained perfection simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by remembering the Lord. The goddess of fortune attained perfection by massaging the transcendental legs of Mahavishnu. Everyone together. Maharaj Prithu attained perfection by worshipping the deity, and Akrura attained perfection by offering prayers unto the Lord. Vrajangaji, Hanuman, attained perfection by rendering service to Lord Ramachandra, and Arjuna attained perfection simply by being Krishna's friend. Bali Maharaj attained perfection by dedicating everything to the lotus feet of the Lord. Shri Vishnu Shavane Parikshita Bhava Vaisesika Kirtane. Repeat. Shri Vishnu Shavane Parikshita Bhava Vaisesika Kirtane. Prahlada Smarane Tarangri Bhajane Lakshmi Prithu Pujane. Prahlada Smarane Tarangri Bhajane Lakshmi Prithu Pujane. Prahlada Smarane Tarangri Bhajane Lakshmi Prithu Pujane. Prahlada Akrurastva vibandane kapipatir dasyeta sakyarjuna. Sarvasvatmani vandane balirabhu Krishnaptere shampara. Sarvasvatmani vedane balirabhut Krishnaptiresham para Krishnaptiresham para. And the word for word, Shri Vishnu, of Lord Shri Vishnu, Shravane, in hearing, Parikshit, King Parikshit, known as Vishnu Ratha, or one who is protected by Lord Vishnu. Abhavat, was, Vaisesika, Shukadev Goswami, Kirtane, in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlada, Maharaj Prahlad, Smarane, in remembering, Tadangri, of Lord Vishnu's lotus feet, Bhajane, in serving, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, Prithu, Maharaj Prithu, Pujane, in worshipping the deity of the Lord, Akrura, two, but, Abhivandane, in offering prayers, Kapipati, Hanumanaji, or Vajrangaji, Dasa, in servitude to Lord Ramachandra, Ata, moreover, Sankhya, in friendship, Arjuna, Sarva Swa Atma Nivedane, in fully dedicating oneself, Bali, Maharaj Bali, Abhut, was, Krishna Apti, the achievement of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, Esham, all of them, Para, transcendental. Let's read the translation together again. Maharaj Parikshit attained the highest perfection, shelter Lord Krishna's lotus feet, simply by hearing about Lord Vishnu. Shukadev Goswami attained perfection simply by reciting Srimad Bhagavatam. Prahlad Maharaj attained perfection by remembering the Lord. The goddess of fortune attained perfection by massaging the transcendental legs of Mahavishnu. Maharaj Prithu attained perfection by worshipping the deity, and Akrura attained perfection by offering prayers unto the Lord. Vajrangaji, Hanuman, attained perfection by rendering service to Lord Ramachandra, and Arjuna attained perfection simply by being Krishna's friend. Bali Maharaj attained perfection by dedicating everything to the lotus feet of the Lord. So in this verse, it's describing how even one of the processes of devotional service, out of how many? 9. Starting Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmani Vedanam. These 9. Out of all of them, if one simply becomes dedicated to one process, one can attain perfection. This is another verse we'll add into our regular repertoire. I don't think you have to say regular repertoire, because when you have a repertoire, it means, well, it doesn't necessarily mean regular, but it means it's in there. I'll say, please repeat. Arajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayastadhama Vrindavanam. Ramya Kachirupasana Vrajavadhu Vargena Gvak Yakulpita. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatradharana Para. And now, Avantika will read the translation. It'll be a dramatic reading.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Son of Nanda Maharaj, is to be worshipped along with his transcendental abode, Vrindavan. The most pleasing form of worship for the Lord is that which was performed by the gopis of Vrindavan. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless authority on everything, and pure love of God is the ultimate goal of life for all men. These statements, for which we have the highest regard, are the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
This is very helpful because it's important to be clear on what one's goals are spiritually, and when we're clear about what the objectives are, then we can naturally apply ourselves to attaining them. And there's a great deal of happiness and energy that's generated from working towards a worthy goal. And this condensation of the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which comes from the Chaitanya Manjusha, will help us to do that and remember what it is that is important in our practice. So the first thing is that Krsna, is the son of Nanda Maharaj, is worshipped along with his abode, Vrindavan. So we can focus our mind there on Krsna, who's the son of Nanda Maharaj. In fact, we'll find when Gopakumar goes back to the spiritual world, he's inquiring, where is the son of Nanda Maharaj? He has a father, he has a town, he has a house he lives in, and so forth. And just as everyone here has had the experience of seeking out a particular friend and going to a particular town, in a similar way, when we have clear information about Krsna, the Supreme Personality of God, the ultimate goal of life, then we can apply that same principle and search him out, find out about him. And also it's notable that Krishna and his abode are the same. There's no difference between Krishna and his abode. It's the internal energy, and it's directly expanded from Krishna himself. Whereas the material energy Krishna calls bhinna, it's separated, my separated energy. Whereas his internal energy in the spiritual world is non-different from him. So the second thing is talking about the mode of worship. We might ask, there are various ways to worship God, but this is the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as mentioned in this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam. These are the opinions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for which we hold in the highest regard. So then he says, Ramya Kachit Upasana. What is that upasana? Rajavidu Vargena Vakalpita. The method of worshiping the Lord which was applied by the gopis of Vrindavan. A spontaneous love, a full absorption 24 hours a day. This is the ideal of worship for those following in the footsteps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We always hold those in the highest regard. What does that mean, to hold them in the highest regard? It means we keep them above our heads. And we cultivate knowledge about how they are special. They're not ordinary. Vikriditam vrajavadubriraham cha Vishnu shradhanvitona shinuyat atavarna yedya bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kamam hridrogam ashvapahinot yacharina dhira. Shukadeva Goswami says in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Do you know what I just said? What verse I just quoted? Karvinda knows. This is a verse in which he's talking about how one attains the supreme perfection of devotional service. Bhaktim param bhagavati pratilabhya kamam. How do you attain perfection in devotional service? He says, Vikriditam vrajavadur biraham cha Vishnu, by meditating, by hearing about the pastimes between Krishna and the gopis. But then he says, Shradhanvito, it has to be heard by those who are qualified to hear. And what is the qualification? Shradhan. They have to have proper faith. They have to have cultivated that faith by association with pure devotees and by hearing from the authorized scriptures, especially the first 9 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which give us a clear understanding of how Krishna is the supreme controller of everything. And when one has that, and one can hear properly about Krishna in Vrindavan, then one can attain the perfection of life. Not only that, the hridrogam ashvapahino acharin of dhira, very quickly then, the dread disease of the heart, which is attachment to the material world, becomes dissipated. It's a discussion that takes place in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam about the ways in which one may temporarily atone for various sinful activities that one has committed in the material world, and therefore not be subjected to the reactions. However, Shukadeva Goswami points out, there's only one way that one can become permanently freed from that cycle of sinning, atoning, and then sinning again. Does that sound familiar, that cycle? There's a way in which there's a desire within the heart to sin, and therefore no matter how many times one atones, one goes back to the same thing and does it again. You go back, Jack, and do it again. So there's a way in which Shukadeva Goswami describes how through the process of bhakti, shraddhanvito, faithfully hearing about Krishna, through good association and hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, then that desire seed within the heart actually becomes destroyed completely. So there's no more propensity. How good will that feel? When there's no more propensity to sin, then one actually begins to experience happy life. Evam prasanna manaso. One's mind becomes happy in that state. After one has risen above the modes of material nature and come to Shuddha Sattva, and has become freed from the propensity to enjoy the material world. Then we hear that the main source of all our praman, evidence about the spiritual world, comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it's important to know that because we, as living entities, have chit potency. We're eager to have knowledge, and there are many different resources available, especially in this day and age. In fact, I've heard, and I don't know the source of this, maybe Kurnath can tell us, that the sign of the end of a particular civilization, extreme decadence, and one of the symptoms of that is unlimited books with speculative knowledge about how to attain perfection. Do you know where that comes from?
Well, Gibbon wrote a book called The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire back in the 18th century, which talked about the decadence of the Roman Empire that led to its taken over by barbarians. But from that, the two great historians had similar notions, although they were a little different from one another, Oswald Spengler and Arnold Toynbee, that things pass from culture to civilization to decadence and decline.
Thank you. And it's also mentioned in our Shastras that one should not become a bookworm and take in knowledge just for the sake of taking in knowledge, but one should be deliberate in cultivating knowledge that will assist one in coming to the perfection of life. And to that end, this verse gives us the source of all that knowledge and all the knowledge that we need, which is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if one dedicates oneself to getting a PhD in the Srimad Bhagavatam, or in every chapter of the Bhagavatam, or every verse in the Bhagavatam, then one will be well served in knowing what is the spiritual world and how to proceed there and how to worship Krishna in the proper way. Srimad Bhagavatam pramanam amalam. It's the spotless Purana and the source of our evidence for the spiritual world. And prema pumarta mahan, here it is, the goal of life, is to attain love for Krishna. Prema. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu matamidam. This is the opinion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So if you want to know what his opinion is, here it is. And these are the truths that he held to be essential for one to advance in pure devotional service. So let's say it all together. Arajo Bhagavan Rajesha Tanayasta Dhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Vrajavadu Varkina Vakalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam Prema Pumarto Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matamidam Tatradara Napara. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. So today we're going to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning with the 7th canto, 1st chapter, and the first verse. And in this verse, 7:1:1, the king, Parikshit, is asking a question to Shukadeva Goswami. And we know already that when one is privy to a conversation between liberated souls, one's in a good position. Because by hearing the questions and answers of those who are interested only in Krishna and who are liberated beyond the 3 modes of material nature, then one can obtain the perfection of life. One can obtain the perfection of life by hearing this conversation. This is the best kind of hearing. And this is what it means this is what it means by revealed scripture. So the first verse is as follows. Shiraju Vacha Samakpriya Suradid Brahman Bhutanam Bhagavan Swayam Indrasyarte Katam Daityan Avadhid Vishamo Yata. King Parikshit inquired, my dear Brahmana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, being everyone's well-wisher, is equal and extremely dear to everyone. How then did he become partial, like a common man, for the sake of Indra, and thus kill Indra's enemies? How can a person equal to everyone be partial to some and inimical to others? Srila Prabhupada's purport. In Bhagavad Gita 9:29, the Lord says, Samoham sarvabhuteshu nami dvesho stinapriya. I'm equal to everyone. No one is dear to me, nor is anyone my enemy. In the previous canto, however, it has been observed that the Lord sided with Indra by killing the demons on his account. Hataputra diti shakra parshni grahena vishnuna. Therefore, the Lord was clearly partial to Indra, although he is the super soul in everyone's heart. The soul is extremely dear to everyone, and similarly, the super soul is also dear to everyone. Thus, there cannot be any faulty action on the part of the super soul. The Lord is always kind to all living entities, irrespective of form and situation. Yet he took the side of Indra just like an ordinary friend. This was the subject of Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry. As a devotee of Lord Krishna, he knew very well that Krishna cannot be partial to anyone. But when he saw that Krishna acted as the enemy of the demons, he was somewhat doubtful. Therefore, he posed this question to Shukadeva Goswami for a clear answer. A devotee cannot accept that Lord Vishnu has material qualifications. Maharaj Parikshit knew perfectly well that Lord Vishnu, being transcendental, has nothing to do with material qualities. But to confirm his conviction, he wanted to hear from the authority, Shukadeva Goswami. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Samasya katam vaishamyam. Since the Lord is equally disposed toward everyone, how can he be partial? Prayasya katam ashureshu pritya bhavaha. The Lord, being the Supersoul, is extremely dear to everyone. Why then should the Lord display unsympathetic behavior toward the Asuras? How is this impartial? Suridascha katam Teshashau hardam. Since the Lord says that he is Suridam Sarvabhutanam, the well-wisher of all living entities, how could he act with partiality by killing demons? These questions arose in the heart of Parikshit Maharaj, and therefore he inquired from Shukadeva Goswami. And now we'll look at the Bhagavad Gita 929, because this is a purport that is extremely enlivening to hear. And it's quoted in this purport. Samaham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti na paryaha ye bhajanti tumam bhaktya maite teshu chapyaham. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all. But whoever renders service unto me in devotion as a friend is in me, and I am also a friend to him. Srila Prabhupada's purport. One may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone, and no one is his special friend, then why does he take a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? But this is not discrimination, it is natural. Any man in this material world may be very charitably disposed, yet he has a special interest in his own children. The Lord claims that every living entity, in whatever form, is his son, and so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. He's just like a cloud which pours rain all over, regardless of whether it falls on rock or land or water. But for his devotees, he gives special attention. Such devotees are mentioned here. They are always in Krishna consciousness, and therefore they are always transcendentally situated in Krishna. The very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in such consciousness are living transcendentalists situated in him. The Lord says here distinctly, Maite, they are in me. Naturally, as a result, the Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. This also explains the words, Ye yatam mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham. Whoever surrenders unto me, proportionately I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotees and the devotee are conscious. When a diamond is set in a golden ring, it looks very nice. The gold is glorified, at the same time the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter, and when a living entity becomes inclined to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is a diamond, and so this combination is very nice. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. Living entities in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees. If a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord, then there is no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there is no reciprocation between the Supreme and the living entity. But in the personalist philosophy, there is. The example is often given that the Lord is like a desire tree, and whatever one wants from this desire tree, the Lord supplies. But here the explanation is more complete. The Lord is here stated to be partial to the devotees. This is the manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to his devotees. The Lord's reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It is part of the spiritual world where eternity, bliss, and knowledge predominate. So this important question comes from Parikshit Maharaj, because it seems that Krishna has favored the demigods. And this is an important philosophical point. As Krishna himself says, Samaham sarvabhuteshu, I'm equal to everyone. And then, of course, he says in this very verse that I'm especially inclined to those who surrender to me, but he says it's because when they surrender to me, they live within me. So, as this chapter unfolds, we find various ways in which the Lord is not actually partial, because he is not subject to the control of the three modes of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Icha dvesha samutena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. That those who are born into this world of the material energy, that is the soul that's being born into the material world, is overcome by the dualities of desire and hatred. And this is due to material vision. So the Lord doesn't have that. So how is it that he sides with Indra? That's the question that's coming up. How does it seem that he's siding with Indra? And the answer comes that when we see partiality in Krishna, our vision is being affected by the external energy. So there's some proofs giving in the chapter that Krishna is impartial and also transcendental to the modes of material nature. And so here are three of them that are given. One is that all of the enemies of Krishna who approach him for nefarious purposes attain salvation when they're killed by him. So this is a very strong proof, because in the material world normally people want to annihilate their enemies and hope the worst for them. And on the transcendental level, when those who are enemies of Krishna attack him or even try to kill him in various ways, like Putana did by putting poison on her breast, what is the result? They become benefited. Krishna forgets about the attack, and he only sees that they were absorbed in thinking of him. Or, as in the case of Putana, a very particular case that's brought up again and again throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is that she disguised herself as a mother and then approached Krishna to kill him. And Krishna just said, "Oh, she came as my mother." So he took that part and he didn't consider the poison part. We've seen also how people sometimes imitate the devotees. There's one devotee named Sudama who wasn't named Sudama at the time, but he was just a prankster. And for Halloween, he dressed up as a devotee in Hawaii. And lo and behold, when he went downtown with his friends to have fun, all dressed up in costumes, the real Hare Krishnas were there. So he decided to take it a step further and jump into the Hare Krishna kirtan party and pretend like he was a Hare Krishna, because he was already dressed up like one for the Halloween celebration. And because he was such an extreme personality, to impress his friends, he took it even one step further, and he went home with the Hare Krishnas. Jumped in the van and went back with them. So he came back after some time, but that was the beginning of the end for his material life. Later on, when he was on the East Coast going to university, he met some devotees on campus, and he had a glimmer of interest because he had already had some exposure to Krishna. And this is one of the qualities of Krishna that's mentioned throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, and in our movement following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we talk about this frequently, about the ways in which when people come in contact with Krishna, the holy name, with the Sankirtan movement, even unintentionally or even unwillingly, they become purified because of coming in contact with Krishna. So Krishna is an equal opportunity purifier, and anyone who comes in contact with him becomes purified, except, as we'll find in this chapter, those who are Mayavadis. They try to do away with his personality altogether. An example is given near the end of this chapter also of King Vena. Remarkably, because of his extremely demoniac mentality and the way in which he didn't acknowledge Krishna whatsoever. Therefore, he wasn't really thinking of Krishna in an inimical way as Kamsa was. Vena is counted as among those who didn't get any benefit. And similarly, the Mayavadis, because they say that Krishna doesn't exist, ultimately, they don't get the same benefit as demons like Kamsa or Putana got when thinking of Krishna inimically, or Shishupal or Dantavakra, who were born with the propensity to criticize Krishna. Of course, they were at the end of their 3 sets of lifetimes, as Jai and Vijay, who had got cursed by sages to come to the material world, as Shishupal and Dantavakra. And when they were born, they had a predilection towards criticizing Krishna. Even as babies, when they started to talk, the first words that came out of their mouth were blasphemy against Krishna. And they thought of him constantly throughout their lifetimes. And they attained ultimate liberation. And this is a remarkable incident that takes place. So the first thing is that Krishna's enemies attain salvation when they're killed by him. The second is that everyone who deals with the Supreme Personality of Godhead gradually acquires the qualities of the Lord. So in this way, Krishna is known to be a touchstone. And Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shudho Nitya Mukto Binatvan Nama Namino. Krishna and his name are non-different, correct? Say yes. Yes. And so this verse describes how Nama Chintamani Krishna's, his name, which is the same as Krishna, is a touchstone or a philosopher's stone. Means that whatever you touch with that stone transforms. So Krishna is transformative. And we know from the Bhagavatam 5.18.12, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarver gunas tatra samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manoratena sati tavato bihi, that anyone who is in contact with Krishna will naturally develop the good qualities, the qualities that are better than even the devas, according to our acharyas. And this is because of Krishna's transformative quality, and that's available for everybody. Anyone who comes in contact with Krishna and thinks of him, even inimically, becomes purified and develops good qualities. And finally, it is mentioned in this chapter that the more one advances in spiritual consciousness, the less he is affected by the duality of material qualities. Sort of the other side of this, that by Krishna's influence, one becomes freed from the duality of material life and material consciousness. So, that means, logically, that Krishna doesn't have material qualities. This is the logic that's given in the chapter. If those who are contaminated get so much benefit just by incidentally coming in contact with him, how could it be that Krishna is affected by the duality of the material world? It's not possible. Everyone okay? Okay. So, and the next point that is made in this chapter is that envy and friendship, the kind of friendship we make in the material world for our own purposes, is the sign of imperfection. A devotee who is perfect sees living entities in an equal way. Vidya vinaya sampane brahmane gavihastani shuni chaiva shupake cha pandita sarmadarshina. And that is that the person who has attained perfect vision sees equally all living entities, whether they're in the bodies of brahmanas, whether they're in the bodies of animals or low-born human beings. because he sees the soul. And he's also not partial or impartial to anyone. He sees everyone equally. This is mentioned in the Sri Upanishad. Who knows the verses that describe this? I may have to move because this may become... I can't even see which way you're pointing.
To your right.
Okay. I'm going to move, but I may need a little help. So the two verses I'm thinking of are in the Sri Upanishad, 6 and 7. Especially the verse in which it is said that Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmaivad bhutvijanataha tatra komahoka shoka ekatvam anupashyataha. There it is. One who always sees everything in relationship to the Supreme Lord and sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. And the other verse says, one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? So this verse that you just showed and then which just disappeared, oh, there it is again. That's okay. He who sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and as he sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. So this proves that this spiritual vision means to be beyond the duality of friends and enemies. One sees how living entities are moving in the material nature according to their previous karmas. He also sees how the universe works in a uniform way. What does this mean? It means that everything's being taken care of. And therefore, I don't need to become envious of others. For instance, I may see somebody has more qualities than I do. And I may become disturbed by that. But this is a result of the continuum that they're on. And I'm also on a continuum. And therefore, because of my previous contribution to particular activities, I'm in a certain state, and so are others. And whatever I do now will determine how I develop in the future. And therefore, one who sees how this is a uniform principle, the way that the universe works, doesn't become disturbed by the varieties and the different situations of other living entities. This is a spiritual vision. So it's notable in this verse too that one should see systematically. This means anupashyati. Means you should follow the vision as it's given in the scripture and also taught by the acharyas, to see like this, a vision of eternity. So in duality, I naturally fear, and the reason is because I consider that I am this body, which I'm not. This body is a yantra, it's a machine, and I just happen to be strapped to it. When we come into the material world, when we take another body, our old body gets burned to ashes. Vayura nilam amritam, atedam bashmantam shariram, om kratos smara, kritam smara, kratos smara, kritam smara. Let this temporary body be burned to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. This is a shocking verse to those who think that they're their body, because the very conception of the body being burned is extremely disturbing. In fact, if you go to the burning ghat in Jagannath Puri, you can drive by it and you'll see many bodies burning at the same time. When I was a very young, enthusiastic brahmachari, I thought, this is great, I'm going to take pictures. And I brought them home to show my mom of half-burned bodies. She said, please never show me this kind of thing again. She was immediately repulsed, and perhaps wasn't the best strategy for presenting Krishna consciousness. But it's rather shocking to see, for instance, a friend or a relative who you're interacting with, then to suddenly be being lapped up by flames and being burned to ashes. There's almost a visceral reaction that one will have, thinking, no, 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 don't do it. And this is what I mentioned earlier in the Srimad Bhagavatam that's addressed in the first 9 cantos, that one has to become freed from the bodily conception of life, which is altogether illusory. In fact, we find in the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam a description of how after Hiranyaka is killed and Hiranyakashipu comes to console his family, and he tells many stories. One of them is about a king named Suyagya who was killed on the battlefield. He was a valiant king. He had won many battles, but the last one he lost. And he fell to the battlefield covered with dust, biting his lip to show his valor, his limbs broken. And his queens gathered around him and lamented, clutching his body and wailing into the approaching night air. And Yamaraj heard their cries and realized their situation, which was interesting, because at the time there was a way in which when a king or a husband would die, then the wife would also enter into the funeral pyre. Because as Prabhupada describes, at that time the wife would consider it less painful to enter fire than to suffer the separation of her husband. Things have changed. So, however, they were holding on to his body and wailing, partly because it's such a shocking thing when one's beloved dies, especially it's a king and one's a dependent. And then there's the added feature that one may be expected to enter within the fire soon afterwards. So there's a sudden change of events, and these kinds of things happen all the time in the material world, and then whatever one had, whatever one thought one had, then becomes suddenly in peril. So they were crying, and Yamaraj heard them from his abode and realized the situation, and then he appeared there in the form of a 5-year-old boy. And when he approached them, he said, "Why are you crying?" And they said, "Because the king is dead and gone, our husband." He said, "I think you're mistaken, because I see him sitting right here." And they said, "No, you don't understand." The little boy said, "No, you don't understand." And they said, "Who are you?" He said, "I'm Yamaraj. I've come to teach you something, and that is that you never saw your husband. All this time you were interacting with this body, and you thought this is our husband, the king. But now you say he's gone, and okay, he's gone, but the body's still there, the same eyes, same hands, same legs. And therefore, the principle of the soul is subtle, and that's disappeared, and you never saw it." So one has to become acquainted with this. Otherwise, one's in abject illusion here in the material world, as described in the Bhagavatam. Bhayam dvitiya binibeshita syad ishad apetasya viparyayo smriti tan mayato tam buddha abhajit tam bhaktyayika yesham guru devatatma. The Kavi Havi Yogendra says that fear arises, bhayam. Everyone say bhayam. Bhayam, fear arises when one thinks, I'm this material body. That's the main problem that we have. And we mostly identify with the mind, because the mind is the reservoir of all kinds of ideas. And by identifying with the mind, we become displaced from our actual, from knowledge and from our constitutional position. Someone may be sitting in the room with one's loved ones under a very nice roof and in a nice safe neighborhood and house, and they may be watching the television. People don't watch television anymore. They're probably watching on their phone something. Streaming, live streaming. What's it called? Those movie things? Netflix. So they're watching some Netflix on their phone, and their mother, father's there, they're well protected, and then they're there in the corner shaking and freaking out because they're watching some horror movie. And meanwhile, they're in a safe situation. And in a similar way, a living entity misidentifies. Dvitiya, he thinks that he's watching another movie. He's thinking, I'm this material creation that's born in this material world. My name is whatever it may be. Bert Howe. And therefore, because he's misidentifying with himself, with a material body and a material identity, just like a person who's watching a movie and thinking, oh, this is horrible. Or, as given by Maitreya to Vidura, one can be dreaming of a situation in which he's seeing the person's seeing his own head being cut off in a dream. And therefore, the horror of this thing, he's panicking in the dream while he's asleep. And the other person's sitting there just calmly reading a book and looking and think, what's wrong with him? You know, he's perspiring and he's breathing very heavily. I was on an airplane once. I was flying somewhere, I forget, India, I think, and the guy next to me was sleeping. And he had some drinks next to him on the little panel and everything like that. So he's sleeping, and I see him starting to get active in his dreams and go, you know, he jumped. And he knocked the drink over and he flailed his arms, and he woke up and he was like, what happened, you know? It's like, and I was thinking of this situation. The material world's like that. I'm imagining I'm this body. I'm Art Howe. I was born into this world, and I belong to the Howe dynasty, and I imagine all these things, and then so many reversals of fortune come in my life, and I freak out over them. But to the other person who's calmly situated in the spiritual life, as Krishna describes in the Gita, Yanisha Sarvabhutanam Tasyam Jagrati Samyami. There's a person who's awake and there's a person who's asleep in material life, thinking, I'm my body. He's thinking, why is he doing all this? He's flailing his arms. It's stupid. And there are some consequences too. This man knocked his drink all over himself, and he had to, you know, soak it up. And so this is the problem, is this vision of duality. It causes fear in the material world. And so we also, in the bodily conception of life, think that we are in scarcity. We're never actually in scarcity, because we're part of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we live eternally. How could there possibly be scarcity for us? But by the identification with the material body, my worldview is that I have to survive. I could die at any minute, and I have to take away scarce resources from others before they take them from me. I have to protect myself. So many ways in which people speculate how to protect themselves. Now, big conversations going on, how to protect ourselves from other countries, other people who have a fetish for guns, and things like that. There's all kinds of ways, speculations how to protect in this material world. I'm constantly in this kind of anxiety for this. And also, if I don't get enough, then I won't survive. And I'll starve, or I'll be left destitute. So this is born of misidentification with the material body. But the Lord is different. Krishna is different. He never comes under this illusion, and he doesn't need anybody's help. Of course, even as living entities in our pure spiritual identity, we're dependent on Krishna. As the Shastra says, Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Ekobahunam Yovidhati Kaman. That there are a plurality of eternal living entities, but one of them is the chief. And he's the protector and the maintainer of all the others. And so we're among those who are being protected and supplied for by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he doesn't have any needs himself. So Prabhupada points out in this chapter, when Krishna says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yomi bhaktya priyachati taraham bhakti paritam ashnami paritatmanaha, that offer me with love and devotion a leaf of flower, fruit, or water, and I'll accept it. Krishna doesn't need a leaf of flower, fruit, or water. However, he does enjoy receiving from his dependent parts and parcels the offerings of love. Therefore he says bhaktya 3 times in that verse. And this is Krishna's position. So now, before I take some reflections so we get the energy moving, there's a description of how it is, because I haven't really come to this point, that it seems that Krishna is partial. He does seem to protect Indra and so forth. So there's a very elaborate description given in this chapter of how it appears that Krishna is partial, even though he's not. And that has to do with the 3 modes of material nature, and the way that the 3 modes of material nature are controlled, which is through the energy of time. Time is non-different from Krishna, but at the same time it's one of his energies that he doesn't take complete responsibility for. So here's the explanation given by Shukadeva Goswami, and that is that each individual living entity has their own karma, and that is generated because of one's own volition. One acts in a certain way and gets a certain result here in this material world. And that's our business. Nobody else forces us into that. But we enter into that realm of karma, and therefore we are subjected to its laws, to karma's laws. And those are manifested in 3 modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And they all have their various qualities. So, when the modes of material nature move in various ways, you could say they're churning. And Krishna describes this in the Bhagavad Gita in the 14th chapter, how they're always fighting for supremacy. Sometimes the mode of goodness is prominent, but then it's defeated by passion. And then passion becomes defeated by ignorance. And there are many combinations and permutations of the way in which these modes are battling each other and rising to prominence, and some of them are being suppressed. And according to the capability and the particular nature of every living being, when a particular mode becomes prominent in this world, then that person who is under that particular mode, is subjected to the particular mode, either becomes more prominent or less prominent. Therefore, as an example given in this chapter, the demigods, what mode do you suppose they're most in? And what about the demons? Passion. And who's left to be under the mode of ignorance? the yakshas and rakshasas. So these three entities are described as being particularly qualified by a particular mode of nature. So the demigods are in sattva, the demons are in rajas, and the rakshasas and yakshas are in the mode of ignorance. So now when a particular mode becomes prominent, then those who correspond to that particular mode or in that particular mode, they become prominent. So when the mode of goodness is manifest in the universe in a prominent way, then the demigods tend to be victorious. When passion becomes prominent, then the demons become victorious. And when ignorance is in the fore, then you have the rakshasas and yakshas become prominent. And the moving of the modes is arranged by the time factor. And so Krishna is not directly, but he's indirectly responsible for the ways in which the modes move and how the living entities are affected by them. And this is mentioned in the first canto, second chapter of the Bhagavatam. I believe it's the 33rd verse. Asau gunamayer bhaver bhuta sukshmendriyatmabi swa nirmiteshu nirvishto bhunkte bhuteshu tadgunan. And that is, when the living entity gets a particular body according to his karma, then the Lord enters within the heart of that living entity, and through subtle influence then helps that living entity to enjoy or suffer according to the prominence of the modes of nature that are available, that are present at the time. And that's how the living entity experiences its existential existence, is because of the control of these three modes of material nature. And that's why sometimes demigods appear to be victorious and other times demons appear to be victorious. It's because of the movement of the modes and because of their particular qualification in those various modes. But it's not because of the Lord's partiality. Now we'll take some reflections. Yes.
People in general see justice as being impartial. The goddess of justice is wearing a blindfold. The idea being that people want to be, they want their disputes and everything judged on the basis of the actual matter in dispute and the actual good and bad things that they've done, rather than who they know and what family they come from and who they're associated with. And I guess we can see that it's kind of a divine quality, that the ability to be impartial and to, you know, filter out biases based and prejudices based on you know, ego, association with others. And yet that the fact that partiality of a kind exists in the spiritual world, that's not tainted by karma and the modes of nature and things like that, is also very encouraging, that it's not just a homogeneous, you know, bland, static existence.
Thank you for that point. Yes, there is naturally a way in which people gravitate towards equality. And of course we see it in our Constitution of America. The way the language goes is how everyone's created equally.
All men are created equal. That's the Declaration of Independence.
Declaration of Independence, all men are created equally.
But it's also in the Constitution. There, for example, there's the 14th Amendment certainly is there's a due process of law and equal protection under the law, and that all citizens are entitled to all privileges and immunities of any other citizen. And,
yeah, so that's there, but does everybody get it?
People can't get it. I mean, and this
they can't get it. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out when he took sannyasi, went out with his followers, And he turned around and asked them, "Did you bring anything?" And they said, "No, we didn't bring anything. You didn't tell us to." And he said, "Good. I want you to observe how the Lord has filled up the world with food and money, and every living entity can only get what's allotted to him or her. There's no way that you can take more or that you will get less." And he goes on to explain ways that happens. It reminds me how the state is set up and says, everyone has an equal opportunity. But at the same time, of course, it's a little imperfect example, but the fact is that not everybody gets an equal opportunity. But it's according to their capabilities to take advantage of what's available. This is a similar way that's being described here in the Bhagavatam, that the Lord is equal to everybody and everything's available, but it's according to my own karma that I either get more or less, or that I'm at a disadvantage or an advantage. So one has to, as mentioned in this chapter, Prabhupada says the secret is that one has to become more and more capable of receiving the Lord's grace. Yes?
I just, after other reflections and whenever you find time, when I came in you were talking about the Chaitanya Manjusa, and I wanted to know what that is, who wrote it, if you can describe something more about it. Maybe not right now, but I didn't want to let it go.
All right. We'll certainly do that. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, the statement that you were explaining the story of Yamraj, you never saw your husband, is such a true that we sometimes see so many living entities, but we just see the external body. We never saw the soul that is residing that. So that statement resonating in my mind, that you never saw your husband. Similarly, that we never saw the so many, maybe our colleagues, maybe our whom we are interacting every day.
That's a big oversight. I mean, I'm living this whole imaginary life, and I'm interacting in such a way, only seeing other people. I don't even see myself. I'm looking in the mirror, how do I look? And everything like that. It's like, that's not you. You missed the point. You missed the boat. You missed everything. And this is quite shocking, that one could then go on to develop an entire civilization based on this idea. But it's faulty, because the original idea is that I'm the body. So coming back to a clear understanding of who I actually am is essential for one to be happy and peaceful. And as Karnath Prabhu was bringing up this point about the way in which we hanker for equality, Krishna mentions this principle throughout the Bhagavad Gita in various places. He talks about how actually those who are closer to seeing the truth, because they're in sattva gun, they see things equally. They see living entities equally. When you start getting in the mode of passion, you see individual entities and their own, and you see them as disparate. And when you're in the mode of ignorance, you really don't see anything. You just have a miserly existence trying to survive. And there are many ways in which we can show how people consider it an ideal to be equal. Many people abhor sectarianism, as an example, and there's a feeling that we should all be together, especially in terms of religious practice. Everyone wants to see it all as one, and we're the same, we're the same. And this is true. This is actually the truth of the matter. There is one religion, that is to, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pointed out, to develop love for God. And this is, the Srimad Bhagavatam comes out in the very beginning and says the gold standard for this equality is that one has no motivation in serving the Supreme Personality of God. And this is available to every living entity. This is the actual religion of the soul, to serve God without any motivation. And then we see that there's a personalism in the spiritual world, and we also see that even beyond the modes of material nature, there may seem to be some sectarianism. This is also a deeper topic, how is it that there's a bias even in the spiritual world? We call this the bhakti bias. In fact, bhakti is a very biased thing because we worship Krishna. He's mine. And there are, even in the spiritual world, there's a description of sectarianism. Even in Krishna's own planet, there are different camps, gunas. Everyone gravitates to their own group. We serve Krishna in this way, they serve Krishna in that way. However, there's no inebriety, there's no envy as there is in the material world. So, in this chapter, in this context, Srila Prabhupada quotes the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, Vitaraga bhayakroda manmaya mamupashrita bahavo jnanatapasa putamad bhavamagata. He says that the three propensities one must overcome in order to come to the perfection of spiritual life. So vita means to give up, to do without. One has to eschew these three things. So the first one, raga, which means unnatural attachment for the material world. This is a kind of a mistake that I make, trying to attach myself to matter and becoming absorbed in it more and more. This is called weakness of the heart. I become attached to matter in the first place, it's a mistake, and then I become more and more invested in it, and I can't give it up. I make a vow, in fact, it's called a griha vrata. I make a vow that I'm going to make a comfortable place here in the material world, and no matter what anybody says, I'm not going to leave. This is the vrat of the material world. And so Krishna says, oh, you could give that up. And then bhaya means you have to give up fear of a personal existence. Because one of the oversimplified, and usually oversimplified solutions tend to be short-sighted. Oftentimes there's nuance in a solution, but one of the ways in the so-called knee-jerk reactions people have when they realize the plight of being in the material world is then to just say, okay, material life is troublesome. You agree? Yeah, so then let's just get rid of it altogether. So this is compared to if you have a hangnail and it's giving you a lot of pain. So then you go to the doctor and says, oh, we'll just cut your arm off. That'll solve it. Will it solve it? Well, it might. I mean, your hangnail, but of course then there's all the kinds of other issues like phantom pain and things like that, even when your arm's not there. So you're probably right. But that's the idea of the voidus and the impersonalists. And then material life seems to be the opposite of this idea of unity and peace and so forth. There's no real shanti here. Therefore, I'll just have nothing. And that's my conclusion. So Krishna says, give that up too. It's not accurate. And the third thing he says is krodha. As if you anger because of frustration, that there are so many competing ideas for how to attain perfection in life, that one then becomes angry and says, none of them are accurate. Therefore, what I'll do instead is just invent my own path, which usually degrades into intoxication. And that's how I'll experience some kind of transcendence. And everybody knows that that's folly. So, Krishna says, give these things up. So what's the answer? The answer is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught, which is to find out the way that there is actually variety within the spiritual world, and that I have an individual relationship with Krishna, which is eternal, and that there's unity in diversity. He taught achinta beda beda tattva, that there's oneness but simultaneous difference. This is the perfect philosophy. It works all the time and in all times and places and circumstances. And so if one embraces this, then one can actually find the satisfaction and the real unity that one's looking for without giving up one's individual existence, which is our natural propensity because we're individuals. And we eternally, we want to live eternally, and we want to love eternally. This is evidenced when we see the stories that we grew up with. Did your parents ever tell you stories when you were a kid? Say yes, or I'll start crying. So did any of them end up with they lived happily ever after? You know, even as a kid, I used to think, this sounds bogus to me, because I was starting to get a little suspicious. I was like, this doesn't sound right. I mean, Dad, how does that work? You know, somebody actually gets to live happily ever after? And this is doesn't seem natural in this world. And so where does it come from? If somebody is in the middle of the desert and finds a valuable coin, one might think, where did that come from? I don't see any other coins out here. You might have to think where it comes from. So when there's a natural propensity that comes out in the living entity, and it's persistent, then one might start thinking, where does that come from? And the Bhagavatam answers that. It's our nature to want to live happily ever after. I saw written on the pavement near where I live in Burlingame, somebody wrote with a Sharpie on the ground, on the pavement, brand new pavement too, I must say. And there was a little heart, and inside the heart it said M plus M. And then outside the heart it said forever. And actually I was kind of feeling for the living entity who wrote that. It was probably a young boy or girl who was smitten in some kind of, you know, had a crush on somebody and like couldn't live without him, and just had to go out and express it and write on the sidewalk, you know, M plus M, and they go home and they can't sleep and they're thinking about little Mikey, and you know, and where does that come from? And why does it seem ludicrous? You know, that M plus M are going to be forever, live forever together in happiness. Everyone's like, ha ha ha, kid, wait till you grow up, you'll find out it's not going to happen. But where does it come from nonetheless? It comes from the fact that we do have an eternal relationship with Krishna, but we're estranged from that. And coming back to that is the process of bhakti. So, yes, other reflections, and we have some online. Question. Okay.
Starting of the chapter, you mentioned the 3 points. That the first is how even the demons who get killed, they get liberation. So, but when later in Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, I don't know where I read, but we find that they go to the Brahman effulgence.
Yes, that's explained in this chapter, especially, of course. There are various answers, because there usually are, but the answer in this chapter, for instance, was Shishupal. Everybody saw it, that Shishupal, when he was killed by Krishna with his chakra, he left his body. They saw how the soul left the body and then entered within Krishna's body. And they were thinking, he's such a rascal. How did he get that kind of liberation? Merging into Krishna. Prabhupada explains that actually that he entered into Krishna's body as a gateway to going back to his service in the spiritual world. So often it depends on each individual case, but in the cases of those who are destined to go back to the Vaikuntha planets, they may merge into the body of Krishna as the gateway to going back into Vaikuntha in the spiritual world.
My question is that, but not everyone gets that. Like that is only specific, like Putna or Sisupal. But most, like in general, it says that they go to Brahman, and then, as we know, that 10th canto, 2nd chapter, verse number 32, in which it says that Aruhe krichena param padam tata patanti adho nadriti smadangreya. Like they fall down again to the material world. So how it is that they are getting the
everyone,
special...
and it's consistent with the theory I gave you in this chapter, which is that everyone has a particular qualification. And according to their particular qualification, their attitude, and the way they've developed in relationship with Krishna, then they have a particular destination. And some of them who merge into the impersonal Brahman, it's because that's their particular mentality. Then, of course, as I think you were quoting the verse Yene Vaksha, then as Prabhupada explains in the Bhagavatam, those particular living entities can't stay in that position. This is our Gaudiya explanation of merging into the Brahman, which is because we're eternally related to Krishna as servants, and because the service is not tangible enough there in the Brahman effulgence, then due to lack of engagement, eventually that eternality is not enough to engage us, and therefore we'll fall back down again into the material world. Where we might meet somebody who comes up and says, "Excuse me, are you from here or out of town? Let me give you one of these. Here's a Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna, here, take prasadam." And then one might become connected with the process of bhakti. But that position is not sustainable. Interestingly enough, the propensity for service of living entities is so strong in the Brihat Bhagavatamrita. When Gopakumar goes to the abode of liberation, he actually notices that the impersonal form of the Lord actually has some form, and that the living entities there are doing some service because they're glittering, and they're showing this kind of glittering feature, and therefore they're glorifying the Lord by that. Yes.
So this is from Rasika Shiromani Mataji. So
hey, wait a minute. She's right here. Okay, go ahead.
I like the statement Prabhu made that Krishna is an equal opportunity purifier. This gives us so much hope. Thank you so much, and it's so nice to have your association in ISV.
Thank you very much. That's very touching. And one of my favorite verses in Prahlad Maharaj's prayers in the 9th chapter of the 7th canto is where he describes that Krishna is just like a desire tree. And it's a fascinating concept, the desire tree. I mean, think about it right now. If we announce that we have a desire tree outside. I mean, in fact, this happens all the time when you go to the Dham. You'll be with the locals there and they go, "That's a desire tree." And go, "Really?" It's like, "How do you know?" It's like, "We just know it. That's it. That's one over there." And then if I ever walk under it, I'm thinking, now what do I do? It's like, what am I supposed to ask for? It's like, "Please give me pure devotional service." Do you really mean it? Is that really what you desire? Or are you just saying that? It's a reckoning that one comes to when one meets a desire tree. And, that reckoning is, what do you really want? Do you really want to leave the material world? You may be engaged in some deity worship even, and then what if Krishna personally appears to you and then says, "Let's go back to Godhead right now"? It's like, I would, but my family, I got to go home at 6. So I'll be back tomorrow. It's like Vaidhi Bhakti, like, I'd like to go with you, Krishna, but I got a few loose ends to tie up here in the material world. Can't go right now. So what do we really want? What is that core desire I have within my heart? And this idea of how Krishna is always there to fulfill my innermost desire. And therefore, it's not Krishna that's manifesting my reality. I have to see that I'm manifesting my own reality because of the way I've developed my personal desires. I want certain things, and that's what Krishna arranges for. So there's nobody else to blame except for myself and my own desire. And this is one of the things that Prahlad points out. So look at yourself, see what you really want, and purify your desire. Yes. Another one. Is there another one? Okay. A couple more reflections. Yes. Shraddha and then Radhakripa.
So Maharaj, I was thinking about when you were mentioning that demons are associated with the mode of sattva and with rajas and demigods with sattva, and then the yakshas and the rakshasas are in the mode of ignorance. So I was just wondering whether there's some significance that the lord of the wealth is actually a yaksha, which is ignorance. Is there something more to understand in that?
Probably. But I don't have any specific knowledge of a commentary or anything, so I couldn't say anything, but yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, I just wanted to echo Rasika Shiramani Mataji's comment about equal opportunity purifier. When we interact in the office, we see every company has nowadays written equal opportunity employer. But you see a lot of discrimination in many shapes and forms, which is well known everywhere. But Krishna, being a perfect moral agent, when he's a purifier, whosoever come in touch, even unknowingly, like when we were seeing yesterday in Harinam, some people, those who are just walking by, they just get something out of it. So that's equal opportunity without any discrimination. You could feel and see it. So I just thought.
Yes. In fact, a verse that I've been looking at very closely recently, which is from the Bhagavatam, but I found it because it's quoted by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on the second verse of the Bhagavatam. And this verse, which is 11.255, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned souls that if they call upon Him by speaking His holy name, even unintentionally or unwillingly, the Lord is inclined to destroy innumerable sinful reactions in their hearts. Therefore, when a devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet chants the holy name of Krishna with genuine love, the Lord can never give up the heart of such a devotee. One who has thus bound the Supreme Lord within his heart with the ropes of love is to be known as Bhagavata Pradhana, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. So this almost mirrors what we're talking about today. There's a way in which if one, and I like the wording in the verse, if one unintentionally chants Hare Krishna, this comes up in the Chaitanya Bhagavat when Gadadhar Das, not our Gadadhar Pandit that we're used to, but there's a follower of Lord Nityananda called Gadadhar Das, becomes incensed that the Kazi isn't allowing people to chant Hare Krishna. So he barges into his palace. He's kind of a little cowherd boy type person, and dressed like a very spontaneous Vaishnava, and he barges into the palace of this king, and he says, "Get down here right now! You're trying to stop the Sankirtan movement? I'll chop off your head." And he's so bold that everyone was taken aback, and they see this kind of cowherd boy, follower of Lord Nityananda, and then the Kazi comes out from his room and looks down into the entryway of his palace, and he sees this devotee, and he goes, "Listen, you go home, come back tomorrow, and I'll chant Hare Krishna tomorrow." And then Gadadhar Das starts dancing. He says, "Tomorrow? I don't have to come back tomorrow. You just chanted Hare Krishna right now." And he got in ecstasy, and he walked out because he understood the principle that you say Hare Krishna unintentionally, and the Lord is then inclined to destroy innumerable sinful activities within the heart. And then the verse uses not just unintentionally, but or unwillingly. That's a nice clause. You have a spiritual attorney here. You look and see, like, okay, what's the wording here? Unintentionally or unwillingly. It's like, I'm not into it. I hate Hare Krishna. It's like, too bad. It's too late now. I'm unwilling to chant Hare Krishna. It's like, all right, it's fine. Just keep doing that. And the Lord is inclined. This is His inclination to destroy unlimited sinful activities within the heart of somebody who says His names. And then it goes into this next phase. What to speak of those who, with love, chant the holy name? They've cultivated a clear understanding that the Lord and His name are non-different, that I'm His eternal servitor. They've come to peace with the fact that this material world is not my home. And by incremental endeavor, they've position themselves in such a way that they can concentrate every day on chanting the holy name of the Lord. And this is what they're dedicating themselves to. For such a person, is said here and in the commentary, the Lord becomes bound by their love. And really, this doesn't even mean full-blown prema. It just means that their lives are dedicated to this, even though they're doing it imperfectly. They've become so dedicated to the Lord. They're chanting His names every day. Anybody here chant the Lord's names every day? You do it on purpose, right? You've dedicated. You're binding the Lord with the ropes of love. This is called what is pranaya rashanaya. There's pranaya rashanaya. These are the ropes of love, and then the Lord won't leave the heart of the devotee. He stays there. Other reflections? Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Oh yes, go right ahead. We need a little more volume.
Can you hear me?
Just barely, but now we can hear you well. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisance.
Ours to you.
This is Shruta.
Oh, it is Shruta. Hare Krishna Shruta, Prabhu.
Jai, Prabhu. Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you.
You made a point earlier that when you were walking under a desire tree, that we may officially say, oh, I pray for pure devotional service. But, we may not really, in our heart of hearts. How can we come to that point of really being sincerely desiring pure devotional service?
Well, just by asking that question is a good start. It's just a point that Prabhupada made in a letter. Sometime I was reading Prabhupada's letters, and actually Satyadev was reading Prabhupada's letters, and he was reading them to me sometimes very mercifully. And one of them that he brought over to my house, he said, you got to see this. He said, the desire for pure devotional service is the same as pure devotional service. And Prabhupada wrote that to somebody.
Wow. Okay,
we'll take it. The very fact that we're endeavoring for it, it's like the acharyas say there's a green mango and a ripe mango. And they're both mangoes, but one of them's just starting. So once you start the process of devotional service, it has its own force, and it will come to fruition. And if you have the association of pure devotees and you understand what the ideal of life is and how to attain it, even though there's still causeless unwillingness there, if you simply go on with the process, Prabhupada talks about this in the light of the Bhagavat, then by its own force, devotional service will appear within our hearts. Actually, we can look at it, I think, light of the Bhagavat. And if I knew the exact plate, I would tell you, but I think it's around number 40. Is that a doable thing? Mukaraven, you know the one I'm talking about. Autumn? In the autumn season? Keywords would be failure, pillar to success. Huh? 43, okay. There it is, 43. Lucky we have Mukaravinda in the front row. So here, in the autumn season, all the birds, beasts, and men become sexually disposed, and the bull, the stag, the male bird, the man, and other male creatures forcibly impregnate the fair sex. A similar impregnation takes place as a result of devotional service to the Lord. Devotional service to the Lord never goes in vain. Just at the right moment, the result of one's particular devotional service will come, even if one has no desire for it. Still there, Shruta?
Yes, this is wonderful.
Even if one has no desire for it. The pure devotees do not wish any return from the Lord in exchange for their service. They do not make business exchanges with the Lord, but the Lord out of His own accord fulfills all the desires of the devotees. It may appear the devotee of the Lord is becoming poorer and poorer in terms of material prosperity, but factually he is not. The typical example is the Pandavas, the 5 brothers headed by King Yudhishthira, underwent all sorts of difficulties because of the conspiracy of their cousins headed by Duryodhana. But in the long run, King Yudhishthira was enthroned by Lord Krishna and his enemies were vanquished. I just want to stop and make a comment here. I love this point about the long run. It's important to keep in touch with the long run. The realization that I wanted to insert there was just about the time factor. Victor Hugo once said, "Nothing is so powerful as an idea whose time has come." And the time factor is Krishna. And that's what rules the material world, is the time factor. And if I apply myself properly right now, no matter what kind of adversity I have to face, when the time is right, everything will come about. And if I maintain whatever sincerity I can muster in my practice of devotional service and go on with it, despite the fact that I'm oppressed by my senses and mind and I don't seem to be getting any traction, I go on trying. What happened? That wasn't as dire as it sounded. It sounded like someone just got swallowed up when they walked through there. And that is, trust Krishna and the time factor. Everything will come about at its proper time. Okay, but in the long run, King Yudhishthira was enthroned by Lord Sri Krishna and his enemies were vanquished. King Yudhishthira was never disturbed by all the calamities that overcame them, even though Lord Krishna was ever their companion. The Pandavas never prayed to the Lord for anything but his devotional service, and in due time, everything came out in favor of the devotees. A devotee, therefore, should execute his devotional services with full energy, endurance, and confidence. He should perform his scheduled duties. He should be pure in heart, and he should serve in association with devotees. All 6 of these items will lead the devotee to the path of success. One should not be discouraged in the discharge of devotional service. Failures may not be detrimental. They may be the pillars of success. One must have good faith in the regulative principles followed by the self-realized souls, and one should not be doubtful about the ultimate result of such devotional service. Rather, one must go on executing his prescribed duties without hesitation, and one should never be influenced by unwanted association. We should not consider going back to God as a plaything. I love that sentence also. We should not consider going back to God as a plaything. We must take it seriously as enjoined in the scriptures. For a strict follower, the result is sure and certain, and when the time is right, the result will come of its own force. Dhruva Maharaj went to worship God to gain something, but when he actually came in contact with God, he did not want anything from the Lord. The Lord, however, awarded Dhruva Maharaj both benefits. That is, the Lord fulfilled his desires and also gave him eternal salvation. Such are the lessons we learn from all the revealed scriptures. The Almighty God awards the results we desire, and therefore we should desire that which is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. In devotional service, we should not endeavor for that which is temporary and useless. So some of the key points there is that it comes of its own force, even if one doesn't desire it. Shrutide Prabhu said that. I mean, I know you know this purport already.
I've actually never read that purport, and thank you so much. That really is amazing.
You know how it's described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya were like miners. They were mining the rasas. So one year I was at Govardhan Hill, and as I stayed there during Kartik, and I was there with Tushta Krishna Prabhu, who's now the temple president in Denver, and also Parma Karuna Prabhu, who's one of the great treasures of the Krishna consciousness movement. He's the son of Amarendra Das, who was the famous devotee lawyer who's protected our rights to do Sankirtan all over America for many, many years. And this Parma Karuna is really smart, and he's a great preacher. And any case, he was there with Tushta, and we were doing a lot of hearing and chanting there. We're living up on the roof of the Govardhan Fortress. Some people call it a palace. I call it a fortress because it's a place of protection, so you can hear and chant. Nobody can get to you. And so one day they were up reading together, and they said, they called me over. They said, "I think we found something." I remember they were so excited. They were like miners, they've been digging and digging and digging. And then they say, "I think we found something." And I could see in their eyes, like, "What'd you find?" And then they read me this purport that changed my life.
Wow.
Like, wow, thank you for that. So these things are all there. They're all in there. And I dare say one could live off of this one purport for the rest of one's life. You could take this and put it into points and execute each point, remember each point, and everything that's necessary is there to stay buoyed in one's process of practicing Krishna consciousness.
I'm going to send this to all the prisoners that I'm writing for the prison ministry.
Yes, very good. Thank you, Shruto.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Good to hear your voice. Hare Krishna.
All glories to Prabhupada.
Glories to Prabhupada. Yes, who's next? 1, 2. Online. Question online? Okay, online, 1, 2. Go right ahead.
So this is from a devotee with a pseudonym 007.
007. That's James Bond.
Yeah. Holy Grace, and he's referring to chanting the holy name with genuine love. So we in Kali Yuga have never faced genuine love. How do we know if we are chanting with genuine love? Please advise.
Well, it's not an intellectual exercise. Feeling compassion and love is an overwhelming experience, and it comes by the grace of the Lord. Our process is from grace. Our process is from grace. It's not an intellectualized process. We're not gyanis. And when one has some experience in devotional service, it's self-illuminating, and it's something that one sees for oneself. This is described in the Bhagavatam also. Bhakti parishanu bhavu viraktir anyatra traisha trika eka kala prapadya manasya tasnata sus tushti pushti shud apayonugasam. This is a description of how when one eats food, when one's hungry, one feels nourishment, satisfaction, and with every bite, one feels one's hunger is going away. This is a visceral experience that doesn't require a certification process. You don't have to have an external judge to come to you and say, okay, now you're feeling satisfied. You know. In fact, I think about this often. Once I was hungry. Well, I'm hungry all the time, but I was recently, when I was hungry, I was thinking, how do I know I'm hungry? How do I know that? I want to eat right now. It's like, how do you know that? It's like you don't look it up in a book somewhere. You just go like, I'm hungry and I'm going to eat. And when I do eat, then I feel happy. And I was like just naturally happy. And I feel like, this is good. I like this. My favorite song, Sharir Avijajal. I mean, it just, every cell in my body goes like, oh, I'm happy now. And you get prasadam. You know when you're starving and you get somebody puts some nice prasadam before you, just like, this is good. And so similarly, it's natural. We are spiritual souls. And we are eternally related with Krishna, who's in his name. And so when we chant Hare Krishna, when you hear the name Krishna, we see people, even they don't know what it is. They don't know Hare Krishna, but they're walking down the street last night when we're chanting, and they look over and they go, this is cool. And this Krishna thing's cool. I don't know what it is. In fact, Bhakti George interviewed some lady about 10 years ago when we made that video, more like 15, about the ISKCON Silicon Valley. She was one of the workers on the street, one of the shops. And so, what do you think of this chant? He goes, I really love it. I have no idea what it is, but it's fantastic. So it's a direct experience. Bhakti parishanu bhava viraktir. So the verse says, just in the same way that you feel naturally fulfilled when you eat, so in a similar way, you'll feel naturally fulfilled when you practice bhakti. You'll see it for yourself, is what the verse says. You'll see it for yourself. You don't need anything external to describe it to you, because it's part of you. And who is next? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, first of all, welcome back.
Thank you.
Just by seeing you, we get purified. It says,
I was thinking the same thing. I was seeing the devotees last night. It's like, oh, my life came back. It's a great suffering for me to be separated
it
from
says,
you.
Darshane pavitra karo hi tomar guna.
Hare
So
Krishna.
just
Thank you.
for that. So I was just thinking that you said that Mahaprabhu, Krishna is not partial. Okay, he's kind to everybody. In that context, Chaitanya Chaitamrita, when Mahaprabhu talking with Haridas Thakur, and Haridas Thakur is, and Mahaprabhu is lamenting that how is that Muslim will get the benefit. Okay, so he said that Haridas Thakur replied that the haram. So even by the word Ram, they will be liberated. And then Mahaprabhu further asked, what about then the animals and the trees? Then he said by the Nam Sankirtan. So and Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda Prabhu to distribute the holy name. And he empowered Srila Prabhupada. We can see that how he came and he distributing, and you also empowering us to go to book distribution.
You're Bengali, huh?
Yes, Maharaj.
I could tell because you said Nam Shankirtan. Yeah,
So it is very
this
nice.
is our cherished philosophy. It's very practical. It's something. We also have to have a sense of mission that we're doing something for the world, and we have to be able to engage all our senses. As Prabhupada points this out, there's a way in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wouldn't enter the house of anyone who wasn't chanting 64 rounds. He wouldn't eat there. So unless you're completing 64 rounds a day, I can't eat in your house. Same thing we do. It's like, unless you have a full set of Bhagavatams, I'm not coming in. But Prabhupada points out that especially in the West and now even in the East, not that many people can chant 64 rounds in a day. You can do it sometimes, and some people can do it all the time. But in fact, Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction that he's prescribed 16 rounds, at least 16 rounds every day. And it's not to just 16 rounds and then watch TV the rest of your life. But it's 16 rounds and spread the Krishna consciousness movement the rest of the time. And he said this, well, please, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so it's very practical because we have to be able to engage all our senses. And what you brought up about this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asking his followers to go out and spread the Krishna consciousness movement, and Prabhupada asking us to do it, this is the disciplic succession. And if one takes this up as one's life and soul, then one will have this practical realization. I was just talking to a group of devotees who are traveling in a van, and I was saying how, I was remembering actually as I was talking to them, the many instances on Sankirtan in which there were different kinds of trouble. One of them had been given a citation somewhere, just because, partly because they were in Texas. Don't get me started. And they didn't have a permit for a certain place. They got a permit now, so it's okay. But the fact is, it's disturbing to have someone come up and say, listen, here's a ticket, you can't do that, we don't like you here, whatever it is. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that when you go out to spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission and you're opposed or misunderstood or obstructed, said that you get chid rakta, spiritual blood, for your chid sharira, your spiritual body. So there's a practical way in which by chanting Hare Krishna, hearing from the Bhagavatam, and utilizing all one's senses to go out and spread the Krishna consciousness movement, one actually develops the necessary qualifications to come into the realm of pure devotional service. This is to be argued from the point of view of the verse that defines the topmost devotional service, in which Rupa Goswami very carefully crafts the wording, and he says, Anushilanam, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Anushilanam, shil means to cultivate something. We have to cultivate something. And he says there's two parts of it. One of them is internal, and the other part is external. It means we have to use our senses to engage in Krishna's service. And what did the Goswamis do? They built temples, and they wrote books. This is very active. And There's also a third part, just for the sake of completion, but he mentions there that there's also, one of them is called Bhavarup, the other one's called Cheshtarup. That has to do, the Bhavarup means our internal cultivation, how we're thinking, meditating on Krishna in a certain mood, and the other is how we're engaging our senses. And then there's the, I forget the terminology for the third one, but it's a different category. It has to do with avoiding offenses. Avoiding offenses. That's actually a cultivation. So there's different ways in which we cultivate devotional service. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the nice class, and it's good to see you back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So in the class, I think in the beginning you mentioned that devotional service actually removes the seed of committing sinful activities from the heart. So we see there are so many programs all over just to improve oneself, but most of them fails because they don't focus on the prime aspect, which is devotional service. So thank you for that wonderful commentary. And also I had a question, actually, while speaking with devotees I have seen, like going back to Godhead in one lifetime, many devotees tell many stuff. Some say it's possible to go in one lifetime, and some say it's not possible. You have to take like few more births or before you get eligible. So what's your point on that?
It depends how you emphasize the words. Because you say, you know, one lifetime, takes one lifetime. You're saying, one lifetime, you'll go back to Godhead. But we're not really concerned with that. We leave it up to Krishna. That's mentioned in the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Attaining the Supreme. The whole point of that chapter is that the devotees leave it up to Krishna. Naite Sriti Partajanan. You know, the devotees, they know there's different ways to leave the world at a certain time, certain way, and so forth. But they're not so intent on, you know, aiming in a certain direction. Their aim is to serve Krishna. Narayana Paraksarva Sarvena Kutashana Bhipiti Swarga Pavarga Narakeshu Apituliarta Darshina. They're concerned with service. This is the main point. To stay and serve Krishna. Whether Krishna decides that I'd like you to stay back and serve here in the material world is like, fine. I mean, who wants to leave the Sankirtan movement? This is too much fun to stay here, and it's like, wow. I mean, this is really ecstatic, and it's really special service too, because you're in the material atmosphere. So there's really a lot to do here. I mean, there's unlimited seva to do here. Who'd want to leave? And Prabhupada appreciated when Rohini Sutta and Manidhar Prabhu, they didn't come. It was a big thing. Everyone, all the Prabhupada's disciples used to come to Mayapur practically, especially the Sankirtan devotees. But they were so absorbed in Sankirtan the one year, and they were excelling in book distribution. They didn't come. And Prabhupada said, where are they? And they said, they didn't want to leave the battlefield. And Prabhupada said, yes, this is pure devotion. And he really appreciated it. And so it's mentioned that Bharat Maharaj took a few lifetimes to go back to Godhead. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions this in his commentary in the 6th canto. He said sometimes devotees take a few lifetimes to go back because they have a very high aim and they need special purification. So they go through a process. It takes what it takes. And then there are devotees, I mean, we're all individuals. It's not a stereotype process. It's like one lifetime, you promise, that's it. But some devotees, as mentioned by Shukadev Goswami in the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam, they like to take the scenic route out of the material world. When they're leaving and they're like, yeah, I want to see the whole thing. Can I check it out as they go up? You know, it's like, okay, there's this, that, like, thanks, you know. And others like, just take me straight back, you know. So it's not a stereotype process. There's various ways. In fact, Prabhupada mentions, and this is well known in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, that even after one takes to devotional service and perfects oneself in this lifetime, in the next lifetime one doesn't go back directly to Krishna's planet, but one goes to a planet in the material world where Krishna is performing his pastimes. And there you're born into a family that is engaged in a direct service in Krishna's Leela. And there you get trained up so you can go back. And of course, you could also take it that that's already happening because you're born into Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement here. You're getting trained up right now. I mean, you could see it like that, right? So Prabhupada said, don't think it's a plaything. This is real. I mean, we're actually in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. He was here 5 minutes ago. And he's still here. The vibration's still in the air, and they're his representatives walking around because, there are people that are authorized, fully dedicated to spreading the Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada writes in the commentary in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he said, don't just think that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's followers who were with him at that time were Nitya Siddha devotees. He said, anyone to whatever capacity, in whatever capacity they can spread the Krishna consciousness movement, and they're fully dedicated to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, they're also Nitya Siddhas. And Narottam Das Thakur writes in his song and said, if you understand that, then you also become liberated. So you could see that, you're already in it. You're fully in it right now in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. You're getting trained up. This could be your last stop. Anything else? Yes. Hare Krishna, welcome. Pass her a microphone, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm seeing you for the first time.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. So my question is that God made everything. He created us. Who made God? So I don't know Shastras and I haven't read.
Oh, where are you from? How do you know the word Shastras?
Sorry?
Where are you from?
We just moved from Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus.
Yeah.
Are you from India?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I have that question from I read Bhagavad Gita in childhood and I don't know much about Shastras, but this question has been wandering in my mind that who made God if he created everything and he made us?
Well, you might start with the living entity because we're considered as Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. The living entities are my eternal parts and parcels. Just as there's the sun, and then there's rays that come from the sun, they're a part of the sun, but they're different at the same time. So living entities are also part of God. But they are co-eternal with God. And it's not that they're born at a certain time. They always exist. It's very difficult from the materialistic perspective to understand that there's something that's not created. And so Krishna is defined as the very source of everything else. This is given in the Sri Brahma Samhita, in which he said, Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the cause of all other causes. So one might say then, well, then I could just pick anything to be the cause. And then, like sometimes Carl Sagan once said, then, just say material nature is the cause of everything. Of course, it's also considered to be eternal. It exists, but sometimes it's manifest, sometimes it's not manifest. But that's also not as logical because material nature is inert. And for it to create consciousness is then unreasonable. Whereas it's reasonable that there's an original cause who's not caused by anybody else, who causes everything else, and who's a conscious living entity. And that's the definition of Krishna. And that's what we call an axiomatic truth. It means it's a truth that we accept without question, first of all, because it's logical, and also, not because it's logical, but it is logical once we consider it, and also because it's there in the Shastra, which we also accept as axiomatic truth. So at some point in understanding any philosophy, science, one has to accept an authority, an authorized source of knowledge. And one has to also accept axiomatic truth. That means an unquestionable truth. Otherwise, one can't move forward. As Aristotle pointed out, then in talking about any particular philosophy, at some point you have to accept an axiomatic truth, an unquestionable, self-effulgent truth, and stand on that. And from there, then one can explore deeper. Otherwise, one will get into what's called infinite regress, which means, okay, who created God? Who created the creator of God? Who created the creator or creator of God? If I say water boils at 200 degrees, you say, prove it, and I say, okay, here's a thermometer, it boils at 200 degrees, and you say, prove that's a real thermometer. And I bring in a thermometer testing kit, and I prove that it's a real thermometer, and you say, prove that's a real thermometer testing kit. And this is called infinite regress. You never end. So you have to stop somewhere and say, okay, this is the source of knowledge, this is where it comes from, and this is the original source. So we say that's Krishna, the original source of everything. Now, if you accept that, and then you go into the science based on that premise, then you'll find that there's unlimited explanations of how that's true. And one can also, as I explained earlier, experience it for oneself. It's not that this knowledge is simply philosophical or intellectual, but it's something that is, because it's true, one can experience it directly. Therefore, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, pratyaksha-vagamam dharmyam. It's something that you experience for yourself directly.
Thank you.
Something. Okay. All right. And just a couple of practical points. And that is that, bring up that, Prabhupada mentions that the secret is that that Krishna is ready to give bhakti to everybody, but it's a matter of our capability to receive it. So this is something that one can consider very carefully. What's my capacity to take it? And then he also points out that our misfortune and our incapability to receive bhakti are caused by rajas and tamas. So this is mentioned in the Bhagavatam. What is the verse? First canto, second chapter, about wood and fire. Partiva dharano dumas tasmadagnis trimayaha tamasastu rajas tasmat satvam yat pramadarshanam. So there's tamas, which is ignorance, and that's like raw wood. And above that, there's above the raw wood is the smoke. And when you you're about to start a fire, but there's no fire yet, but it's just smoke. Prabhupada says, smoke disturbs, but it never serves. And then, once the fire breaks out, then you've got something. There's so many things you can do with fire, not the least of which is perform Vedic sacrifice. So, therefore it says, Sattvam yad brahmadarshanam. From sattva, then you can start to understand the truth. So this is practical because you can organize your life in such a way that you can cultivate sattva gun. And then Shuddha sattva. Sattvam vishudam vasudeva shabditam yadiyate tatra puman upavrita. From the platform of Shuddha sattva, then one can see Krishna naturally. This is Vasudeva consciousness. And there is a method to do that. Through body, mind, and speech, one can cultivate sattva gun. And through hearing of Bhagavatam, there's a natural progression. Through chanting Hare Krishna, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a highly recommended activity every day to expose oneself to the transcendental sound vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra and also the Srimad Bhagavatam. Then from there, tada rajas tamo bhava. There's a point at which one will become notice for oneself that I've become freed from the influence of the lower modes of material nature, and I've come to Shuddha sattva. So you can take it upon yourself to improve your position in life and increase your your capability to receive Krishna's mercy. And then Prabhupada writes, according to attitude, Krishna, if we have the right attitude, Krishna can either be our direct advisor, he says, or if I have the wrong attitude, then he'll remain unknown. This is a matter of attitude. And if you develop an attitude of humility and service, then Krishna will become your direct advisor, just as he says in the Bhagavad Gita in many places. And if you become a rascal, then Krishna will give you so many excuses to waste your valuable human life by diverting your attention in ways that are not just wasteful, but also disgraceful. And that's all I'm going to say for right now. Hare Krishna. Any other points? Oh my God. Okay, 1, 2. That, I mean, it's oh my God in a good way. So I was thinking too much philosophy. Okay, go ahead.
No more philosophy, Maharaj. It's a simple.
No, not you. I was saying maybe I'm giving too much philosophy. Yes.
You were mentioning that how the duality in this word, how the duality is hatred, love, and everything, but or envy, other things. So I was just when I'm reading Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, I was reading recently and seeing that nowhere like there's so much interaction happening between devotees and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everyone is serving in their in a very special way. I never found any envy or anything that is. Everyone is so lovingly serving, whether it's any associate. So
that's not true. Srivas Pandit turned around and slapped Harichandana in the Rath Yatra, and I could really relate to it because I just came from Mayapur. People were bumping into me every which way. I already didn't feel well, and I was in the temple room and I was thinking, is this rugby or is it Mangalarti? And I mean, slamming from every direction. And my mind went to that pastime at Rath Yatra, where everyone's crowded in. I've been to the Rath Yatra there at Puri. It's intense. So there I could understand Srivas Pandit is standing there. Everyone's trying to see Mahaprabhu dance, and Harichandana is taking Maharaj Pratapuruja around, making sure that he has a place a vantage point to see the Lord and so forth. And Srivas Pandit's blocking the view. So they're trying to, and Harichandana is kind of like pushing on Srivas Pandit. And Srivas Pandit is not sure who's pushing him, but he doesn't want to be disturbed. And it's, I don't know, it's one of those things. And he turns around, smack! He smacked him. And Harichandana is just about to reply and say something in return. And Maharaj Pratapuruja says, I'm not so fortunate. I have not been slapped by a pure devotee. And he diffused the whole situation. But, that it's all lovey-dovey and everything like that. There's a lot of interaction in the spiritual world that's tasty. I mean, it's not all just like Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. In effect, in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatana Goswami points out and say, Vaishnavas don't like Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We don't want that. We want the nectar, the rasa, with the devotees are interacting on all kinds of different levels. And that's what makes it interesting. You're not going to read a novel where every page you turn to it is a sunny, beautiful day and nothing else happened that was bad. And you turn to the next day. You want to hear like, who said what? There's all kinds of things in the Bhagavatam. Ramachandra Puri shows up and goes, this guy eats too much, It's like, you're talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so did the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He chased him away with a stick, saying, I'll kill you. And Mahaprabhu was, ha, ha, ha. He thought it was funny. There's all kinds of intrigue and, things going sideways in every which way. But it's Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's the nature of life and relationships in eternity. So it shows how that all works, but with no inebriety. Your point's well taken, but I just wanted to add that extra point.
That means I had to read more. Thank you.
I think.
No, it's not a matter. Your point was well taken, but it just, anyway, it's a different aspect of it. Okay, go ahead.
It's very nice that the more devotees ask question and the better answer you give. It's like getting more and more nectar, like a squeezing a fruit.
Well, that's where Ananda comes from. And Prabhupada on a morning walk, more and more devotees were coming, and by the end there was a lot of devotees, and Prabhupada stopped and he said, you see, this is Ananda. It's relationship with lots of devotees. That's why Krishna expands himself. Eko Bahushyam. So for his own enjoyment, he has unlimited. You can't enjoy unlimitedly unless you have unlimited others to enjoy it with. And that's what he does. And like in the beginning, there were 4 or 5 of us here. And then the more that devotees come in, and we've always had this experience here at ISV. I just remember in the old temple, there was a window on the door, and I'd be sitting there, I could see the door, and maybe there'd be like 1, 2 devotees. And then I'd see a shadow come to the door and think, oh good, one more, and they'd come in, and then more personalities and more people, and then pretty soon, the Ananda goes up. It's the Ananda factor. That was your point.
Yeah, one more I had
okay, Hare Krishna.
One point I had you mentioned that means in material world we are envious of others, but Krishna have created us equally. But as soon as we come to that platform, there no need to be envious of others, because everyone have his own path, and whatever others have achieved by doing the karma or sadhana, you can achieve to that path.
Yes. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu has a really excellent presentation on karma. You've seen that? And he talks about how you walk in to a cricket match and you see it's 100 to nothing. And you go like, what's going on? 100 to nothing. This is bogus. And then he says there's 3 explanations. One is that the scorekeeper is biased. And then he said another one is that it happened by chance. And then there's another explanation that he goes into later about how there's a continuum. They played a bunch of games before that, and it's a cumulative score. Does that happen in cricket? It does? I don't know anything about it. So, seeing the entire universe as working in a uniform way and understanding how everyone's getting exactly what they deserve, but more importantly, the attitude that I'm getting exactly what I deserve, because I've created it, because of my particular attitude, that I'm getting exactly what I deserve. This is tate anukampam susumikshamano bunjane evatma kritam vipakam. This is taking responsibility for one's life, that whatever I have, whatever reactions I'm getting or not getting, is because of me, of my previous. And I'm not a victim. I'm a living entity. I'm just like Krishna. I'm just a little smaller, that's all. And so I have to take full responsibility if I want to enter into the reality. Non-reality means I give up my responsibility and I hand it over to the material nature and blame it on everybody else. That's material life. So this is such a mature understanding that the material world, everything's working in a uniform way, and that there's a supreme controller behind the whole thing, and everyone's getting exactly what they deserve. Then one can actually attain peace through seeing reality. Yes?
Can you tell about your trip to the Dham a little bit?
Tell about my trip to the Dham?
Yeah,
Well, we went to the Dham. I know that for sure, because I was there, I think. We went to Jagannath Puri, and every time that we go to Jagannath Puri, we find more and more treasures there, because we discuss deeply about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes in Puri, and the stark realization that Mahaprabhu liked Puri. He went there for many, many years, and he stayed there. And just the very fact that he lived there, and that we're there looking for the reasons that he was there, is very compelling. And there's a lot of satisfaction in that. And there are many pastimes that take place in Puri that are extremely valuable for our nourishment in our particular practice of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And after that, we all went to Mayapur. And in Mayapur, there's although it's the Dham, in one sense, is one, every Dham has its own flavor. In fact, it says in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Puri and Mayapur are two rooms in the same house. But each room has a different purpose. And Mahaprabhu goes to Jagannath Puri because it's the Vipralamba Kshetra. It's the place where he goes to the zenith of Vipralamba, there in the Gambhira, where he's experiencing the height of separation from Krishna, induced by his associates, Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, singing songs that bring out the different moods in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then, of course, in Mayapur, this Audaryadam, this sense is there of unlimited magnanimity that the Lord is distributing to the rest of the world. So whenever we go there and we visit these various places, especially for me, Srivasangam is very powerful because it's seemingly such a simple place. But from that one place, that mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he inaugurated the Sankirtan movement, and always that revelation, so many times, the Sankirtan movement starts in such a simple way. Someone just says, okay, let's go out. That's all Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, like, all right, let's go out now. And the devotees did, and then they got hassled by the police as soon as they went out. I mean, they got all discouraged. And that's nice to know also. These are eternal associates of the Lord, and they went out, and then as soon as they went out the door, some cops came and said, you can't do that here. I mean, how many times has that happened to you? I know how many times it's happened to me. My friend Divyanga, when he went for a permit somewhere, a federal permit, and they finally gave it to him, but one of the permit guys said, oh, Mr. McCready, I just have one question. How do you get 58 misdemeanors on your record? It's because he got arrested 58 times in the airport in Cleveland when we were trying to actually open the place up. We had a test case, and he was the guinea pig, so they kept sending him out to get arrested. In fact, somebody came out to kill him one day, and another devotee was in his place who almost got killed. Was in the hospital for many, many weeks. A person came out, but Divyanga just happened to have the day off, and someone who looked like him from the temple was out there. And I'm just saying, we can relate to Mayapur. You know, it's part of our, this is what we do. And the fact that Mahaprabhu's followers went out and the cops came and broke their drums and said, you know, get out of here. You can't do that. That's scary. And I see the devotees from all over the world. I met with the Chinese devotees there in Mayapur. Of course, they came to our yatra also in Jagannath Puri and Mayapur, but I met the whole group of devotees from. So one of them, they were asking me questions about book distribution, and Sankirtan. So one of them raised their hand and says, so we can't do Harinam. We can't legally go out and do book distribution. We can't really display, you know, our devotional, you know, features in public or anything. What should we do? It's like, what are you going to tell them? Well, you got to figure out something. I mean, that's difficult. So knowing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates had a similar problem, you know, they were in a Muslim country, and the king said, you know, you can't do this here. It's illegal. And what did they do about it? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got together a bunch of devotees, and they went to the police constable's house and said, you know, by the way, we're doing this. And eventually it goes, okay. And so, you know, we can relate to that, where it all started, the ground zero. I always think of that Srivasangam as ground zero, and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went there and revealed himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and fulfilled the desires of all the devotees and revealed how he was omniscient. These pastimes are very sweet. And seeing the chakras go up, this time was really, it was otherworldly. I mean, we just happened to be there for the festival of the installation of the chakras. They're enormous. They're the big one on top of the temple is this bigger than this wall here. You know, when it's set up twice the size of this wall. And so we had the opportunity to go give the Abhishek, and then the cranes lifted it up. By that time, I went back to my room, which was on the top floor of the Vaishnava Academy. I was up there with Nirkula Keshavarti Maharaj, and we could see the crane lifting up the chakra. And it's thinking, how often do you get a chance for this? I mean, to see the TOVP being built and actually see the chakra go on, this is an historic event that you know, will be recalled for hundreds, thousands of years. That temple will be there. And so we felt privileged to be part of that, and it reminded us how we're in the midst of something. It's easy to think, like, this is nothing because I'm there, you know, it can't be anything because I'm involved. How could it be significant? But when you actually see these bigger kind of events and go to the places where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates began the Sankirtan movement, you think, oh, by mercy, somehow or other, we're in the middle of it. And it gives impetus to actually take full advantage of the opportunity that we have. Juxtaposed with the craziness of the world nowadays, people really don't have any solutions to speak of to solve problems. Whatever they're doing, they're making it worse. And although we look like a little ragtag organization compared to, you know, Oracle, for example, with all respect, Larry, I know you're listening, but I mean, what is it ultimately? It's a big fancy organization. They have a lot more money than we do, but they don't have the core power of spiritual vibration that we've inherited. This is our gift to the world. This is our great treasure that we have. And going to these holy places, we're reminded of that. And that we have something nobody else has. And we have not only for our own selves, but a contribution to make to the world. So, Srivasangam, tiny little place. Prabhupada's room in Vrindavan, tiny little place. But because the proper vibration was there, received through disciplic succession, it came out like fire. It continues to burn. So same thing in our lives. If we simply take the principle in a sincere and very straightforward way, don't try to change anything, just take it the way it's been given to us. Don't try to be fancier. Don't try to be more Catholic than the Pope. Just do it as it's been passed down. You don't have to bring in, Prabhupada said, so many austere books. Just stick with what you got. And go deeply within the process that you've been given, and everything's possible. And one can realize the spiritual world, one can defeat death. That's the ultimate purpose of life, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Ante Narayana Smriti. That's not ordinary, and that's something that we can do. And just as Jagannath Puri is another room in the house of Mayapur, there are two rooms in the same house. So similarly, this temple and all of you here, this is my realization coming back here. This is also the same room, is a room in the same house. There's no difference between this and Mayapur and Puri because of what you're doing. Because the deity worshippers, we're worshiping Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan and Mahaprabhu and Lakshmi Nrsingadev, and we're doing Sankirtan and hearing Bhagavatam. This is the Dham. There's no difference. And Prabhupada established that all over the world. So we're really lucky. We never have to leave the Dham. We can always be in contact. You're in your car, you can be in the Dham. It's all a matter of where we direct our consciousness. Go Premanande Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo. 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo. Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gaura Hari Bo Vanchakalpatarusha Kripasnabhe Vachapatitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Marman, Natari Armarman. Nachari ar marman, nachari ar marman, hey, nachari ar marman, nachari ar marman, nachari ar marman, nachari ar marman.